Now, let's combine the previous two cases, right? A times sine x and sine bx. We combine together, it would be the graph for the y equals a sine bx or y equals a cosine bx. So here, no problem, the amplitude is what? Is the absolute value of a, right? Absolute value of a. So the period is so the graph will be oscillating between negative absolute value of a to positive absolute value of a, right? So this is called amplitude. So how amplitude control the height of the graph, right? The height of the graph. And the period is control the repeatedness, right? Which is here is 2 pi over b. This is the period. See here, b must be greater than 0. If b is not greater than 0, we can use the odd function and the even function to simplify it first, right? Okay, so now let's look at this problem. So just to combine it together, okay, we just use this example. Y equals negative 2 cosine negative 4x, okay? So before that, we notice that there is a negative number in front of negative 4, not a positive. We need b is greater than 0, right? So let's change it a little bit. We use the even function, odd function. We know cosine is an even function, so it actually equal to negative 2 cosine 4x. So we needed to draw the graph for this function, right? Instead of the original negative 4x. It becomes 4x. Okay, so the amplitude which is negative 2 absolute value, which is 2. So that means it will oscillating between negative 2 to 2. So the height is 4, right? And the period is 2 pi over b, which is 4, right? So it's pi over 2. So the period is pi over 2. And our 1/4 over period, which is 1/2 pi times 1/4. So this is the pi over 8. Okay, so the distance between each quarter point, the x coordinate for the quarter point is, the distance is pi over 8, so increased by pi over 8, right? So now the original function is the cosine function. Again, this is the same thing, right? It's the cosine function, so we'll have the quarter point. I just write down the quarter point. So you should be familiar with that, right? Then we multiply, so our function becomes this is the negative 2 times cosine. So the first thing, we needed to have our quarter period, right? A quarter of the period. So this is 0. The next one, which is we increased by pi over 8. So the next one is pi over 8, right? At pi over 8. Then we increased by to the next one, which is pi over 8. So it's pi over 4 plus pi over 8. Then we increased by pi over 3 pi over 8, increased by pi over 8, right? Increased by pi over 8. So it becomes pi over 2. So this is the one period, right? This is the one period. So now what about the y coordinate? We multiply by negative 2 on the y coordinate. So it's negative 2 here, 0, negative 2, 0, negative 2. Okay, so now our graph becomes this is pi over 8, pi over 4, 3 pi over 8, and pi over 2, right? So the first point is 0, negative 2, so it's 1, here's 1, here's 2, right? Negative 2 is here, so negative 2, here's 1, here's 2, this is 2, so negative 2 is here, then this point, and we have, sorry, here should be positive 2, right? We multiply by negative 2, negative 1 times, so it's positive 2. So here is 2, here is this one, and here is this one. So the graph is right. So it's just flipped, right? So the range is from the graph, which is from negative 2 to 2. Okay. So the remark is our function is original function is y equals f of x equals cosine x, right? Our end function is negative 2 times f of 4x, right? Which is this one. We need to get rid of this negative sign, okay? Using the even function or odd function. So that means we will flip the graph about y-axis and then multiply by 2, stretch the graph twice vertically, and then compress the graph. I also compress the graph. Okay, so if the original function is this one, if the original function is this one, this is 2 pi, right? So now it becomes this is the pi over 2, right? It becomes pi over 2. So it will be like, right? So I didn't draw very well. Right? It looks like this one. So we compress and stretch vertically and flip the graph, right? It's we just use the technique we have learned in the transformation. But the only difference is now it becomes the trig functions. So now let's look at the most complicated one, graphs of y equals a sine bx minus c. Okay, bx minus c. And y equals a cosine bx minus c. So here, the period is the amplitude. Is still the same, which is the absolute value of a. The period is 2 pi divided by b, so here b it should be greater than 0, right? So just a quick review that y equals f of x minus c. So that means if c is greater than 0, so we have two cases, right? C greater than 0, that means move to the right c units. C less than 0, move to the left c units. Okay, so this is the technique of the transformation. move the graph horizontally. So now our function, we use the sine function as our example. This is bx minus c. So it can be written as a times sine. B will control the period, right? X minus c over b. We take out b, right? So c over b would be the units you will move horizontally, to the right or to the left, c over b. Okay. So the idea is to draw this graph, you need to know that find the graph of, you need to find the graph of what? Y equals a times sine bx, right? Then we shift. This is the first thing. Then the second thing. Then we shift horizontally. Shift y equals a times sine bx horizontally by c over b units, right? To get what? To get y equals a times sine bx minus c. So this is the basic idea. So here c over b is called the phase shift. C over b, give a name which is called phase shift. So this is very important, some terminology when we study the physics about the wave. This is the phase shift, okay, phase shift. So we can use one example. Okay, we can use one example. So this example is y equals -3 cosine 2 pi x plus 4 pi. Okay, 4 pi. So the amplitude is the absolute value of -3, which is 3. Period, which is what? 2 pi over b. b is 2 pi here, so it's 1. So quarter of a period is of a period is 1/4 times 1, which is 1/4, right? Okay, so the inside of this one, y equals -3 cosine 2x plus 4x. 4 pi can be written as -3 cosine 2 pi. We take 2 pi out. 4 plus, not 4, x plus 2, right? We factor out 2 pi. So we will move, this tells you that we will move the graph, move to the left by -2. Move to the left -2. We should say move to the left 2 units. Okay, 2 units. Okay. So this is the idea, right? But if you want to draw the graphs very quite precise, you still need to use the quarter points, right? We still need to use the quarter points. So this is 0, 1, and pi over 2, 0, and pi, -1, and 3 pi over 2, 0, and 2 pi, 1, right? So our problem becomes negative 3 cosine. We use this formula, this form. Okay, it tells you that we move the points to the left by 2 units. Okay, so it becomes to the left, it becomes 0, becomes negative 2, right? I just look at the period, the x coordinate for each quarter point. Okay. Okay. Then our period is what? Is 1. So the quarter is 1/4. So increased by 1/4. So increased by 1/4. So it becomes negative 7/4. And this is increased by 1/4 plus 1/4, negative 3/2. Right? The increased by 1/4, it would be negative 5/4. Then increased by 1/4, it becomes negative 1. Then we multiply by negative 3 on the y coordinate, so this one becomes negative 3, 0, 3, 0, negative 3. Okay, so now you can draw the graph. So we need to locate the point, negative 2. This is negative 2. This is negative 1, right? And here is, this is the negative 7/4. This is the negative 3/2. And here is negative 5/4, right? The negative 1. So 3. So 3 is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, this is 3. 1, 2, 3. This is negative 3, for example. So here is negative 3. Zero, 3, 0, and negative 3. So the graph will looks like this one. So here should be some smooth curve. Right. So this is the graph, right? So this is the graph. So you can extend, right, this graph by you can extend it. Right, so this is the graph. You can extend the other way, right? So it will oscillate in between 3 and the negative 3. So the range is negative 3 to 3. Okay. So this one, we just used, we can still use the technique, right? We can use the technique, we can use the cosine, we know the cosine function, then we change the period and change the amplitude, then move to the left by 2 units, right? But if you can list this kind of quarter point, it would be very clear for you, right?